Well, hey there, good friend. Come on in and welcome to the GameDev Tavern. Grab a nice chill drink and come join me as we create fun little games together. My name is Nicholas, and this is already episode 20 of the tutorial series where we create a 2D arcade soccer game from scratch in Godot. And welcome back. So we only have 5 episodes left to wrap up this entire game up and this entire series. So we're still going to keep the pace pretty high. In today's episode, we are going to complete our gameplay loop, so this is pretty exciting. Everything that we built so far will just come together and provide a full gameplay experience, allowing us to play a full match throughout. So in the last episode, we built our central game manager alongside its state machine, and at this point in time, we needed to instruct all the game objects to get back into a proper kickoff position after a goal has been scored. So we'll do this by creating a new global event called Team Reset. So let's hop over into the script, go into your game events, and here let's go ahead and introduce a new signal. We'll just call this Team Reset. And we'll have that signal be emitted from the game state resets. So right now, we arrive at this point when the players are done celebrating. So let's go ahead and emit the event. All right, and we'll need all of the various actors in the game to listen and to respond to this event. Typically, we'll want the ball to reset back and the players to go back to their kickoff positions. So let's start with the ball. It's probably the easiest of the two. And here we're going to take a little bit of a shortcut. We're just going to teleport the ball back to its kickoff position. So right now, by the way, I think the ball is not properly centered. So let me just go ahead and do that. Let me bring the ball to right here. Let's see, transform 425. I think it's 180 for the center. Okay, so let's hop over into the ball script. And we'll want the ball to come back to that position. Right now, we don't keep track of that spawn position like we're doing for the player. So let's go ahead and introduce a new variable. We'll set that to vector2.0 to start with. And then in the ready method, let's go ahead and record that position. All right, we'll also want to listen to that global event. And let's create a callback method called onTeamReset. Okay, I don't know if we have other callbacks here. It doesn't look like we do. I'll just go all the way to the bottom. Okay, this doesn't take any argument. And so what do we want to do here? Well, we just want to bring the ball's position back to its spawn position. And we probably want to make sure that it is stopped moving. So let's set the velocity to vector2.0. And let's also force the state. I think it should already be there, but just in case, we'll go into the freeform state. All right, so the ball is now ready to be acted upon after we emit the reset signal. So next up, we'll need to have the same thing for all of the players. The players will need to go back to their spawn positions. Actually, if you think about it, bringing the players to the spawn positions won't work for everyone because the ball is starting here right at the center. We actually need the two offense players that are located here and here to actually come close to the ball, at least for the team on which the goal was just scored. The other team will be fine. So I guess we'll need to introduce here a separate kickoff position and keep track of that as part of the player. And then whenever we reset the position, we can tell the players whether to go back to their spawn position or to go to the kickoff position. So similarly to how we had a list of spawn positions here, let's create another child as part of actors container. And I'm going to create a node2d, and I'm going to call this, let's call this kickoffs. And I'm going to bring this up just maybe just below spawns. All right, and here, let me also position that at the same spot as spawns. Remember that parent node here, we use the, where is it? We use the scales.x and we set this to -1. And check this. So we have the opposing team. We'll want to do the same thing for the kickoff position. So that way we have the kickoff position maybe here and here. We'll want to use the scale of x to -1 so that when it's the opposing team doing the kickoffs, the points, the location get mapped on the other side. So let me reset this. And then let me set the position of the kickoffs to 425, 180, the same thing as we have for the spawns. So here, transform, set this to 425, 180, and that relocates it right here. And now let me create Control A, another node 2D, and we're going to create our two kickoff positions, which are, again, going to be spawn positions here. Let me call this one kickoff position, and I'm going to set the transform of this one to slightly to the left of the ball. That will be the player who will be doing the pass. And then I'm going to duplicate this node and set the transform of this one to, let's say, maybe -5, and then let's bring it down by 30 pixels. All right, so the first offense player will be here, second offense player will be here. This is when it's the home team doing the kickoff. If the home team has just scored and the away team is going to do the kickoff, we'll just bring the scale of x to -1 to have the opposite positions here. All right, so we'll need to have access to this in the code. So let's go ahead and right-click, access as unique name, and then let's hop over into the actors container script. So here, let's go ahead and add it as an unaltered variable, similar to how we have our spawns here. Kickoffs. Okay, and we'll want to pass that information whenever we spawn the player. So currently the players only have, let me go into the player script, they only have their spawn position. They don't have some form of kickoff position. So let's go ahead and add this, HTK right here. And I'll set that to vector2.0 to start with. And then when we initialize those players, let's go ahead and add a way to pass in that information as well. All right, so now actors container is going to complain because we changed the signature of the initializer here. All right, so here we'll want to pass in the kickoff position. So let me, first of all, make sure that we also bring the scale of x to -1 when we treat the away team. And then inside the spawn player here, let's go ahead and pass our kickoff position. Okay, we can pass it in the signature now. All right, so here we need to create our kickoff position. By default, we'll set it as the spawn position because it's going to be the same for pretty much everyone except the two offense players. So then we can pass it here. All right, however, we do want to change it for the two offense positions. Basically, whenever we pass the information to the players, whenever we instantiate them, we want to pass these two nodes for the kickoff position rather than just use the spawn positions. So back into the script here, we only want to do this for the two offense players, which is whenever the index I is 4 and 5, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these are the two players. So here, I guess we could do something like this. If the index is greater than 3, then let's actually set the kickoff position to our kickoffs. And we're going to use exactly the same logic as this, right? Except rather than getting it from the spawns, we're getting it from the kickoffs node. And here, get child, so I guess we need to subtract 4. We'll get the global position as vector2. All right, so just a recap of this logic, here we're going to have I go between 0 and 5. And whenever we are targeting index 4 and 5 here, we'll want to actually pick the index 0 and 1 for the kickoff position. Okay, so we should now have players that have a place to go whenever they need to reset. So we'll have the players listen to that global reset event, and at this point, they'll need to go into the reset position. Now, the players are either celebrating or they're mourning at this point. So for players who are celebrating, that means that they scored the goal. We'll have them go back to the spawn position. For players that are mourning, we'll actually have them go back to this newly defined kickoff position. But in both cases, those players will need to have some form of state. so that they can run to a specific predefined position. So let's go ahead and introduce this. Let's hop over into the player script and all the way to the top, let's create a new state called resetting. And I'm going to create a new class for this. And I'm going to put this inside scenes, characters, character states, player underscore state underscore resetting. You can see, by the way, how many states we currently have for the player. Imagine if we didn't have a node-based state machine, how complex our player script would be. This is really one of the huge advantages, just our ability to scale the complexity of the logic by having small classes that just take care of the logic for that specific state. All right, so for now, I'm just going to create an empty state, and we can add the logic down the line. And I'm just going to add it to our factory. So PQR. All right, so once again, we'll want to go from the morning state into this new resetting state. And we'll want to go from the celebrating state all the way until that reset state as well. The only thing is we'll need to pass in which is going to be the position that they need to head for. So for that, we'll need to pass some information between those states. Let's hop over into our player state data and introduce a new variable. Let's call this reset position. And create a setter for this. All right, so now let's hop over into the morning state. So here, this is where they need to go into the kickoff state. So first, let's listen to the team reset event, and we'll connect to it, create a callback on team reset. And here, we'll want to transition into our player state resetting. And we'll need to pass in our reset position, player state data.build.set reset position. And so here we'll want the players to go to the kickoff position, right? It's their turn to kick off the ball. All right, we'll do the same thing. I'm going to copy those 3 lines and let's hop over into the player state celebrating. And so here, let me paste this. I'm just going to bring this down to the bottom here. All right, so we're connecting to the global signal team reset. We're going here, we're resetting, except this time we don't want the players who just scored to go to the kickoff position. We'll want them to go to the spawn position. Okay, so now the players are transitioning into this reset state and we're giving them a position to go to. So let's go ahead and write some of the code inside this state so that they actually go to that new position. Let's go ahead and create a variable has arrived so they don't need to do any more logic once they've gotten there. And inside our process function, I don't think we'll be using delta here. So if we haven't arrived, then what do? Well, we need to figure out which direction to go to. So it's currently the player's position. And we're going towards our reset position provided by the information from the state. And then let's check whether, how far off we are from that destination. So distance, I guess we could use distance squared too. State data.reset position. Let's make sure that it's just smaller than 2 or 1, I'm not sure. Maybe 2. And has arrived equals true. And so here we'll want to stop the player. And we'll probably need to have them face towards the goal as well. Let's try without it for now. Let's see what happens. So otherwise, we'll just want them to move as fast as they can. And in both cases, we'll just go ahead and call our set movement animation, which either sets the animation to idle or to running. And we'll make sure that we also set the heading as well. All right, so let's go ahead and try this out. And so what should happen is when the players are celebrating, after 3 seconds, they should move over global position. All right, okay, this is gonna make it a little bit trickier to test. So let me reset this, go into the world view, and I'm actually gonna take the ball, bring it close to me again. This will just make it a little bit easier to test out because I need to score goals just as fast as possible. All right, so come here and shoot the ball. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and they're now moving towards their kickoff positions for the team that was scored on and spawn positions for the other one. That's perfect. So the one thing is after they've reached their destination, they need to face towards the right direction. And then, you know, of course, we'll have the ball kind of reset in the proper place. So for that, I think we had a method called face towards target goal somewhere. Is it here? Yes. So let me take this method from the AI behavior and I'm going to cut it, bring it over to the player code and put it somewhere. I don't know, maybe here when we're talking about heading. Okay, let me just remove the notion of player here. And then inside my AI behavior, I'll just call it from the player directly. So it should be complaining somewhere. Oh, I guess it's part of the one of the states right here. Player.face towards target goal. Wondering if there's any other instances where we're using this as well. Goalie, no. Okay, looks like it was just in the AI behavior field. Okay, so we now need to go into our player state reset. And here we can, when we stop, we can have the player face towards the target goal. Okay, and I guess let's try this out before I move the ball back once again. All right, this guy's just way too OP. I'm just passing everybody so fast. Okay, 1, 2, 3. They're gonna hop over back. Now the camera is following the ball. The ball will be here, and now everyone is facing the right position. So this is working great, and I'll move the ball over here down the line once I don't need to do this amount of testing. But here we are arriving at an interesting point here. We are going to implement a new state as part of our game manager called kickoff. And the objective of this state for the game manager, think of it again as the referee, is just to wait for the correct player input before emitting a global signal to get things going. So like players will be able to start moving, they'll pass the ball initially. So for now, let's go ahead and create an empty skeleton and we can add it to our factory. So file, new script, and here you want to move over to the game states. So back into the scene / game manager, game states. Let's call this game state kickoff. And this is going to extend game state. And for now, I'm just going to, let's just print something once again. All right, let's make sure we add this to our factory. Game right here. Okay, so the big question here is when should we transition into this kickoff state? So here I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of a coding challenge because this is a very interesting problem that you will be facing in all of your games. We want to transition from the game state reset into the game state kickoff only when all the 12 players on the field have reached their reset destination. So if I go over here, basically everyone is going to go through this, and once they've reached their final target destination here, we need to have all 12 players reach that point before we transition into the game state reset. And this is a little bit tricky because it's not just about sending a single signal upstream. We need to coordinate and orchestrate all 12 signals, all 12 different positions. And right now, game state reset doesn't even know about the players, and I don't know if it actually should. So there are multiple ways to accomplish this, and because again, this is a very common problem that you'll be facing in your game. It's not just about having one node signal upstream, but it's about having multiple nodes coordinate and either send signals or have a way to orchestrate their positions or something. I'd love you to try to think a little bit about this. Pause the video now and see if you can solve the problem. So once again, how do we transition from the game state reset to the game state kickoff once all of the 12 players have reached their destination? So go ahead and pause the video now, spend a few minutes, try to think about a solution. And again, there's multiple ways to do this. There's no perfect solution. So go ahead and try this out. All right, so hopefully you had a chance to try this out, and there's multiple ways to accomplish this. I'm going to actually show you two different ways to do this. One quick and dirty way, and one way that I find a little bit more involved, but also a little bit cleaner as well. So the quick and dirty way is to use Godot groups, and we haven't actually explored that during this series yet. Godot groups are a convenient way to just group objects together. You can have access to them in the UI here in the node inspector. You can click on groups and just think of those as tags. So objects can have multiple groups. They can belong to multiple groups. We can retrieve objects from groups from anywhere in the code. So we can use this to our advantage to group all of the players together and make them accessible from anywhere in the code. Typically on our end, we'll be interested in hearing about this from the game state reset. So let me just show you real quick how that would look like, and then I'll show you the other way after that. So first, let's add the players to the same group. So inside the player code, whenever we initialize the players, we can add them to, we can create a group called players. And this uses a string. Ideally, we'd create some form of constant. We're going to need to reference to that string from other places in the code. So, because this is just a quick and dirty way right now, I'm just going to use this, but I'll be deleting that code down the line. So now, whenever we are in the game state reset, right here, we can actually have access to all of the objects from that group. So here, let's create a variable to store all of our players. And then inside the enter tree, let's go ahead and get all of our players. Get nodes in group players. All right, and just like that, in 2 lines of code, we have allowed from anywhere in the code to have access to all of our players. And so now that we have access to all those players, we can just have inside our process method, I think we're going to be using delta here, we can just check for all of our players. Are they ready for kickoff? So right now, I think if we go into the player state reset, let's just have a quick way to know whether we've arrived. So let's expose this. Maybe we can have a function called is ready for kickoff. And here we'll return has arrived. We'll actually need to expose this from the player directly because we don't have access to that state. So let's hop over to the player script and maybe here has ball. All right, so here we'll return the information from the state. All right, which means that we need to create a default method for the player state, and we'll return false. All right, so by default, all of the states will say that they're not ready for kickoff, but inside the reset state, we'll only set that to true whenever the player has arrived. So we now have access to this from the game state reset, and so here we can just check, as we go through the entire array, is there anyone who's not ready? And if anyone's not ready, we don't need to move forward. We can just return. Otherwise, once we have gone through the entire list, then we can go ahead and transition into our proper state. All right, so we can try this out. So let's press F5 and see if I can score a goal quickly. All right, 1, 2, 3. They're going to go and reset. And then I'm going to look at my console here and ready for kickoff. Okay, perfect. So this worked. This worked great. And personally, I'm actually not a huge fan of this because of 2 reasons. Reason number 1 using groups can often lead to writing spaghetti code. And the reason for that is all of a sudden your players, which were nicely isolated, now become some form of global object that can be accessed from anywhere in the code base. Here we're accessing it from this game state, and we can modify the players, we can update them. Like, it's really hard to keep control over what's happening for our players. And secondly, the game state reset right now needs to know about the various implementations of players, and it needs to do a lot of logic as part of that. So it works fine, but in terms of architecture, I think it's actually not fantastic. So here I want to present another solution, which I actually find a little bit cleaner. So currently the node that knows about all the players, once again, we've gone over this multiple times, is the actors container. The actors container is the one that is spawning all of the players. And so we can make it its responsibility to check for the readiness. And this code here, we can bring that as part of the actors container and use signals to tell the game state that we're ready to move forward. So for that, let's hop over into the actors container. And I'll be cleaning the code just a little bit. For now, let's go ahead and have a variable. Let's call this is checking for kickoff readiness. I'll set that to false by default. And inside my ready function, let's go ahead and listen to my reset global event. Let me create a callback method for this. All right, and so here I'll just set my variable is checking for readiness and set that to true. All right, and then inside my process method, here we can just check if we need to check for readiness, and then we can create another method, check for kickoff readiness. We could even do that every 200 milliseconds, by the way, because that doesn't need to be done on every single frame. But for now, that should be okay. All right, so let me create this method here, and this is going to look exactly like what we created for within the game state reset. Let's go over both squads. Then let's go over every player for each squad. And here, let's check if the player is ready for kickoff. If not, we can just return right away. And then if we are done here, we want to communicate upstream that we are ready for kickoff. So for that, we're going to be using a global event. Let's go into our game events, and here we can create a new signal called kickoff ready. So back into our actors container, we can now emit this signal. All right, and we only get to that line of code if we haven't returned, right? So like this means we only get there when all 12 players are actually ready for kickoff. Okay, and so this should work. I'm just going to now clean up my reset state. So here, rather than using a group, I can just listen to my new event. And here I'll transition into my new state. As you can see here, I don't even need any processing inside my state here. Okay, and I can remove this, and I can remove this. And I'm going to hop over into the player script, and I'm going to also remove my group. So inside my initializer here, I can just remove this add to group. All right, let's go ahead and try this out. And the result will be the same. All right, so I'm going to wait until they start resetting. After 3 seconds. And there we go, ready for kickoff. So as you can see, it's a little bit more involved than the first solution, but personally, I like it better. It just keeps the game manager states a lot cleaner, and we don't have to rely on groups, which again, it creates unnecessary global state. That being said, it's really a matter of preference. You should use whatever you feel more comfortable with. Personally, I try to avoid groups and try to do with signals instead. Oh, and one thing I think we need to fix is we can actually stop checking for resetting after emitting this signal here. So if we are emitting the signal, let's go ahead and set is checking for kickoff readiness. Let's set that to false. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and save our changes. We can start now implementing our kickoff state. Okay, so what do we want to do here in this kickoff state? Well, we just want to get things started again, which is something that can be triggered manually either by human player 1 or by the human player 2. So for that, we'll need to know two things. First of all, we'll need to know which team is actually doing the kickoff, and then we'll need to process the right inputs. Meaning that we'll need to know which teams is being controlled by player 1 and which team is being controlled by player 2. Potentially they're playing co-op, and that way we can just inspect the right key presses to know when we can start things off. So in terms of understanding which team is currently doing the kickoff, we actually have that information as part of the game state scored. This is the country scored on, except we're not passing that information anywhere. So we're actually losing this information as we go from one state to the next. So we can simply pass that information from the scored state to the reset state. So we can just pass in that state data. And then similarly, when we are in the reset state, we can pass it from the reset state to the kickoff state. Meaning that now in the kickoff state, we actually have access to this information, right? We can just type var country starting. And this is state data.country scored on. So next we need some information about which team is being controlled by player 1 or player 2. And this is actually something I've been hoping to fix for a while. Right now, this information is currently hard-coded inside our actors container right here at the top. And we kind of wrote this in a very hacky method. So we are going to rewrite this. And actually, the countries are being controlled by whichever player is some pretty critical information. So we're going to be bringing this up all the way to our game manager. So back into our game manager here, where we wherever we specify the various countries are being played, let's also specify which countries are being controlled by the players. Maybe we can call this player setup. And this is going to be an array of string. And here I'm going to do roughly the same thing, which is basically player 1 would be a part of the France team, and then if there's nothing, this means that there's no player 2. So for example, here this setup would mean that both player 1 and player 2 are playing co-op within the France team. This means that they're playing a versus mode, one against each other, and player 1 is controlling France. But you could reverse that setup here. So here USA would be both controlled by both players in co-op. And here it would be versus mode, but player 1 would be on the right-hand side. So in our setup, I'm just going to keep player 1 for now, just to keep things simple, and then we'll test multiple things. So it might actually be useful to know whether we're in co-op mode or in single player. So we can create a couple of handy functions for this. So in co-op means that we are just looking at a player setup, and let's look at the first value and making sure that it's equal to the second value. And then let's check if we're playing in single player. And this is simply looking at whether we actually have a country controlled by player 2. All right, so if it's empty, this means that we are playing in single player. All right, so now let's go back to our actors container. We're going to be able to fix the hacky code that we had written initially. So we can get rid of this for now. And we're actually going to be doing a lot of this. We're going to be setting up a lot of control textures. I think right now you cannot really have this first line without having the second line. I think we're doing this multiple instances in the code. Let's see here, for example. So maybe before getting started, let me just create a quick method on the player side to both set the control scheme and then just update the control texture at the same time. So let's hop over to the player script. And let's see, where could we put this? Maybe here. Set control scheme. And let's take one argument, which is the control scheme. We won't return anything. And so here we'll want to both set up the control scheme, but we'll also want to call the set control texture method, which updates the sprite. All right, so back into the actors container now. Let me just replace this. So here, let's just call it set control scheme. Can get rid of this. And then here, let's also call set control scheme. And we can get rid of this line. Okay, and all the way to the top. So here, so I guess we could replace it, but actually I'm going to get rid of this, and instead I'm going to create a method. Let's call this setup control schemes. Okay, and then let's go down. Yeah, I guess right here. Okay, so what do we want to do here? Well, we're going to be using the information from the game manager.player setup that we just had. So maybe let's start by saying that the player one's country. There's always going to be a player one. You cannot have just player two playing the game. So player setup, and this is going to be the first value. Let's check if we're playing co-op. Game manager. So if we're playing co-op, then let's first find the squad for which the players needs to be a part of. So it's going to be the squad home. We're just going to check the first player within that squad and check the country and see if it's the same as the player one's country. Otherwise, it'll be the squad away. Okay, so player one and player two are playing co-op here. We're just checking the name of the first country, and we're checking whether the players are playing home or playing away, meaning whether they're going to be on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side of the pitch. And now that we have the right squad, we can just assign the players 4 and 5. Remember that these are the two offense players, so we'll just set the control scheme here. So the player at the top, the first offense player at the top will be player 1, and we'll have player 2 be the one just below. If we're not playing co-op, let's say we're playing single player. So if we're playing single player, well, similarly, we'll want to find the squad. So let me do this here. And here we'll just want to set up the bottom player here. And the reason for that is because the bottom player in the offense, if I go into here, it's going to be located here. So they're going to be receiving the pass initially. So if you're only playing single player, you'll start off either here or here, depending on whether you're playing in the home team or in the away team. But you'll always get the pass upon kickoff. And finally, the last setup, which is when we are playing in versus mode. So here, let me copy this line once again. I'm going to call this player 1 squad. Okay, and let me copy this here as well. And this, we can just use the player 1 squad instead. All right, so we just want to know on which side which player is playing. So player 1 would typically play on the home side, player 2 would typically play on the away side, but just you know, this doesn't assume anything. So here, let's go ahead and set our players. So player 1 squad will want the 5th player, and then player 2 squad will also want the 5th player. All right, so we want to call this method at the top and replace what we had initially. Which we did here. We also probably want to do this when we are checking for kickoff readiness. So here, when things are ready to go, let's also reset the control schemes. That way, if you had scored with like a defender, whenever the kickoff starts again, you're back into the offense. And I think this will make it easier because that way you can see your player right away. Okay, we can actually test this, making sure that it works properly. So let me double check that I am currently playing as France. Oh, and I should be player 1, so it should come, right, there we go. So I was I was here at the bottom. Maybe I can move the ball to make it a little bit easier. So let me bring the ball here and try again. All right, and so this is me. So that's correct. Let me move myself over to the USA team. So here, let's say I play as the USA and start the game again, and I'm going to be on the bottom right. Perfect. Okay, this is working great. Let me reset this back to France, and we can now use this information in our game state kickoff. So here we have the country that's starting. So we want to know which players can actually hit the passkey. Maybe create a variable called valid control schemes. And right now, I'm just going to set this to an empty array. We'll be adding either player 1 or player 2 to this. So first, let's check which country is starting and check if the value of that country is the player 1's country. And if that's the case, let me just add that control scheme player 1 is a valid one. Okay, and I'm going to copy and paste this line and see if the country that's starting is also player 2. So in this case, they would be playing co-op, in which case I'm also going to allow player 2 to press the passkey to get things started. And in the case where we still don't have anything, well, this means that the kickoff is being done by the CPU. We'll just allow player 1 to press the passkey in that case. We could allow both player 1 and player 2, but I think this will work. All right, so this logic is pretty simple, right? We just want to figure out which players can press the passkey to get things started. So if it's player 1, that's the country is player 1, we'll allow player 1. If player 2 is controlling that country, we'll allow player 2 to do it. If it's the CPU's country and we're playing singles or co-op, but we have the other country, then we'll just allow player 1 to have control over kickoff. So now we can go ahead and, in our process method, just check whether we are pressing the right keys. So we can have multiple of those. And here we'll just want to check if we are pressing, this action just pressed, the passkey. Then we will go into the in-play state. All right, so again, this array here can either have player 1 or player 2. If both people are playing co-op on the side that they're doing the kickoff, both of them will be able to press the passkey. So here we're just checking if the passkey is being pressed. One thing that we'll probably want to do is when we do kickstart things off, we probably want to emit a global signal, which will be caught by the players and the ball so they can actually transition into their proper states as well. So let's go ahead and create a new global signal. We'll call this maybe kickoff started. And then let me go back again into the kickoff state, and I'm going to emit the signal. All right, so we can listen to the signal and make sure that things get started properly. So let's start with the ball. So what happens with the ball? Well, let's first listen to that signal. So inside our ready method here, let's go all the way to the bottom. Okay, what do we want to do here? Well, we just want the ball to be passed downwards whenever we kick off the ball. So we can just pass to our spawn position, which is going to be at the center of the field. And then let's just go, and we need to pass a destination, right? So vector2.down, and then here, I think it's about 30 pixels down. Let's just create a constant for this. Right here. Kickoff, pass distance, can set that to 30. I'll make that a float. And coming all the way down, I'm gonna multiply this, and this should work. The only thing here that I'm not a huge fan of is the pass to right now. Whenever we pass the ball, we currently lock it. And we lock it for half a second right now. But we probably don't want to do that when we kick off, we do the initial kickoff. So let me create a optional argument here. Let's call this log duration. By default, we're going to make this equal to our duration pass lock. And I'm going to pass this here instead. That way, whenever we are calling the pass to, we can actually pass in 0 here, which will prevent the lock from happening. All right, and this is going to be it for the ball. Let's just go ahead and start working on our players. So currently, our players are waiting inside the reset state here, and they've just communicated they're ready for kickoff. So let's go ahead and listen to our global signal. And down at the bottom, let's create our callback. And what do we want to do? Well, we just want to transition into the moving state. Player.state.moving. All right, so let's try this and see if things are properly set up after we've scored a goal. Let me bring the ball towards the center here, bring it about here, and see if that works. So go ahead and press F5, and I'm going to rush and see if I can get access to the ball here. All right, let's see if I can score. Okay, players should be going back after 3 seconds, getting ready. The opposing team is doing the kickoff. And here we're all ready, and I'll press the pass key, and there we go. Okay, fantastic. So the only thing that is still remaining right now is that when we start the game, players are already in play, basically. We want them to do a proper kickoff, right, rather than starting from their spawn positions. So we can do this using the reset state that we have created. So let's hop over into our game manager. And here, rather than starting inside our in-play, let's go ahead and start inside our reset. And then our actors container right now is listening to this event as part of the ready function. And we probably want to listen to it earlier, just in case there is a race condition between the actors container being created and that global object. So I'm just going to move my, my event into my init method and bring this line of code here and move it up here. And then inside my game state kickoff, so here we are entering this state when no one has been scored on, right? This is the very beginning of the game. So maybe we can just have by default that the home team will be doing the kickoff. Then we'll just set it as the first one. And lastly, let's hop over into our player, and we don't want them to start inside the moving state. Where are we at here? We actually want them to start either in their kickoff position or at their initial position. So for this, we'll need to also send them to the reset state and send the right reset position. So let me remove this line here, and then let's figure out which position they need to go into. So it's either going to be the kickoff position if their country is the home country. Otherwise, it's going to be the spawn position. All right, and then let's go over into the reset state, resetting, and let's pass that information to our state. Reset position, initial position. All right, let's go ahead and start the game, and we should have players start at their spawn and then move towards the reset. They're now waiting. If I press the pass key, I now start the game. Perfect. All right, and yeah, I think we've reached a good point here. Let me go ahead and persist the changes. Okay, and with that done, I know we're way over time once again, but this actually completes our gameplay loop, and it will also conclude our episode as well. So players are now getting ready for kickoff. They understand how to respond to goals. They understand how to do proper kickoffs. Everything is starting to look quite great. So in the next episode, we'll actually be able to add a little bit of juice to the game, add some UI, start polishing up the game, and yeah, it's going to be pretty nice. You're probably one of the handful of people that have made it so far in this series, so huge thanks for sticking around. You don't know how much it means to me, and I really hope that, you know, as you work your way through all of those episodes, that you're learning a lot of things that you can then apply to your own games moving forward. So given, you know, you're so far in the series, I'd actually love to hear your feedback. Please use the comment section below and just let me know what I can do better in these tutorials moving forward. Send me some love with a quick like and then help the channel grow, as it's just a few months old now. I'm really excited to start polishing what we've done so far in the next episode. In the meantime, time to take a quick break, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.